Do you know that there's two types of movies? One that is shown from the viewpoint of males and one that is shown from the viewpoint of females. I also did not know that till I watched The Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Now I want to give a small synopsis about the movie because I feel everything will get lost in it won't make sense basically if I didn't talk about the synopsis at least. Synopsis, what I'm trying to say is what the movie is about. So in the entire movie you will just get to see 3 or 4 females at max interact with one another, and it honestly is about a painter who has to paint the portrait of a woman who is about to get married. That's it. Well, it is interesting for many other reasons, but this is the premise of the story. And yeah, I think I had to talk about this before talking about why it's so good, so that we all have a little bit of context. And just by the way, the person who is being painted does not know that she is being painted. The painter actually comes under the disguise of a caretaker slash a walker. Somebody who's basically gonna walk with you around the island. I really hope I gave a proper premise. You know what? Just in case, I'm just putting up like a premise slash synopsis slash introduction of the movie over here. Now, it is a French movie and I had a blast with it. But now here's the weird part. I'm not exactly sure why. I really liked the movie, but I was not able to understand why I liked it so much. And for somebody who likes to talk about stories, I was really confused. But after looking into it, a lot into it, in fact, I realized that before I can even start with this movie, I have to first talk about the male gaze and the female gaze. What is that? Now, the male gaze is a term that is coined by Laura Mulvey. I'm not sure if I pronounced this right. And basically, The Portrait of a Lady on Fire is nothing of that kind, because actually this movie has been shown from a female gaze or from the perspective of women. Now, hold up. I think the easiest way of understanding the male gaze is by giving some examples. Now, I'm going to talk about certain characteristics or traits of women, and if you can think of any movie or show that comes to your mind when I talk about these characteristics or traits, then well, you've already experienced the male gaze. Let's think about an action movie. When we think about women in action movies, if you are able to imagine a woman character who is really bossy, who has really tight clothes, who has a really toned, really cool looking body, and also has a really cold and distant personality. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could think of at least one woman in such movies. And well, you're looking at that movie from the point of view of a man, to simply put. Again, a few more examples. If we look into women who are in love, and all that you can think of is them blushing and feeling shy and, you know, just kind of being all over the place. If an angry woman is somebody who shouts or screams, if a sad woman is somebody who cries and sulks in the corner of her room, and if women can only think about marriage, love, how they look, what they wear, their makeup, a cat fight with their friend, and many more such trivial matters, well, I mean, not trivial at all. But like, if these are the only things you can think of when we're talking about women issues, then yeah, that's also a perspective of the male gaze. What really makes this movie really good is the fact that we're watching the movie through their eyes and not what we're thinking of these women to be. What that basically means is that they're showing women for who they are and not for all the stereotypes that we come across about women, basically. And even though it's a movie that is set in the 18th century, honestly, I could relate to a lot of what they did and a lot of what they spoke. And I think it's because, you know, the point of the movie was not about, you know, all the oppression and suppression that takes place or all the inequality that is there, which is there, just by the way, in the 18th century. But what's actually good about the movie, why I found it relatable, is because of the fact that we're seeing how these characters or these women actually respond and react. We're actually focusing on these people. Instead of showing the oppression, we're showing these women and their life and how they go through this, basically. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not really trying to make this into a man versus woman issue. That isn't the point, honestly. I just really like this movie, and I think the main point of liking this movie was, unfortunately, the whole male gaze and female gaze perspective. That is the only reason I brought this up. And I think if I can showcase a few scenes to you, it would make a lot more sense. Because, well, I'll get into the review now.
Il faut que vous sachiez une chose. Elle a épuisé déjà un peintre avant vous. Avec une idée simple, en vérité. Elle a refusé de poser. Il n'a jamais vu son visage.
Pourquoi refuse-t-elle d'être peinte?
Parce qu'elle refuse ce mariage.
The movie is somewhat serious and intense, but I think that's also what I respect about the movie, that it chooses to remain in its true colors and in its character, instead of going for a sort of fan service, commercialization aspect of it. Probably also why a lot of people might not be knowing about this movie. Less is indeed more. I am going to showcase the movie's trailer, and I want you to observe this scene that takes place.
Vous parlez de ce destin comme s'il était terrible.
Que savez-vous de mon futur mariage?
Je sais que vous devez vous unir à un Milanais, c'est tout.
C'est tout ce que j'en sais aussi. Vous comprenez que ça m'inquiète?
As you can see, the dialogues aren't a lot. They were probably just 3 lines. And yet, it was able to convey a lot. And this is exactly my point. I definitely could feel myself seen, to say quite literally, because we are more than just the common tropes of women that are shown in a lot of movies. And yeah, I feel like Portrait of a Lady on Fire does a good job of the same. Even the music or the musical score that has been used in the movie is quite minimal. And from what I could understand, the movie tried to convey more through its silence. That is also what makes it interesting. There's a form of female intimacy and female romance that we're able to see. That is also something I wasn't used to, but it isn't unusual, of course. And that is why I want to talk about some highlights of this movie. Where do I begin from? I think that's the real question. Okay, firstly, while the movie does show the unfairness that revolves in their society and in their lives, it chooses to focus on the women rather than the, situation that takes place. It chooses to focus on how these women navigate through it. So there's no Prince Charming per se in the movie, and we're definitely going to see a lot of how real life works, to be very fair. But that's also what I really liked about it. 18th century and I still could relate. That says something, right? What's the second highlight? Well, it's the acting. I really must say, with a movie that, uses silence and, the acting more to convey its story instead of the music or the dialogues or, the action sequences and whatnot, I really do feel like the actors for this movie have worked really, really hard. You can... Here are some scenes, okay? And just observe. Just observe how these actors are able to solidify the personalities of their characters through their acting. And especially the last sequence, the final scene that takes place in the movie, has been commended to be a very, very well done scene/acting. And I think I agree. There's so many emotions. There's so much that's happening in that scene. It wouldn't make sense on its own if I were to show it to you right now. But yeah, there's that. And well, my third highlight definitely has to be how the movie is intense in a quiet manner. It is actually a very realistic representation of how women actually behave and interact with one another. I think I've said this 1,000 times, I'm really sorry, but yeah. Like, we are more than just, women who cry, who are whiny or sobby. And there's a lot of depth to each of the characters, and I'm still surprised how we get to know so much about these characters even though they don't say a lot. Okay, I'll stop. There's also the fact that there's many cultural references and language references that would make sense more if you would understand the language itself, but I would still recommend to go through a few articles after the movie to, if you like the movie, then I have put up some I'm flubbing. I have put up the links of some articles that talk about some of the hidden references that we do not understand, because the movie is taking place in the French language, and there are some things, some cultural things and language things that we do miss out on because of the language barrier. So yeah, if you're interested in that, or after watching the movie, if you feel like you're interested in it, the links below. There's a lot more to the movie. Honestly, I probably could go on an obsession, because I watched it and I was left with no words, and 3 days later it hit me that I really liked the movie. I think I had a lot of mixed feelings when I finished the movie, but I think it was because I was still processing just all the things that I was going through. Now, I really don't want to stretch this video any more than it should, but because it was my first time experiencing like a movie that went through the female perspective, or to the female gaze, as they say, I definitely felt like I wanted to talk about it. Can I stop flubbing? But also for the same reason, I want to clear some things right off the bat, and it is, I don't want to make the claim that, by watching movies that are female directed or that capture the female gaze, that is the only way of understanding women. No such claims. But I would like to say that do give such movies a try, because I do feel like there's a lot more diversity in when it comes to representing women in general, and it does feel a little more accurate and intimate. And it is definitely the small things, from holding somebody's gaze or eye contact, to showing rage, or sharing a meal and spending time together, or even running towards the sea. There is a lot many things that are over there in the movie, and even in this sort of a genre that does try to bring and showcase a depth to women that exists in real life, but is definitely not shown a lot in your mainstream media. And I am pretty sure there's still so many things that I might have missed talking about the movie, and there's many more things that are there in the movie itself that you will identify as well. And if you found something that's worth mentioning, or if you've already watched this movie, then do tell me about it. I really want to hear your thoughts about the movie. Even a line works, honestly, because I'm currently going through an obsession phase with this movie, and I will probably be checking out many movies that are either written by female women, I flubbed, either written by women or directed by women, or maybe just check out stories that are shown from the female gaze. And yeah, so there's that, and yeah, that's about it. Have a nice day. They're not kind of discussing stereotypes of these women, but we're kind of talking about what they are going to go through. Nah, this is failing big time. Eyes of these women, and not what we assume, and not what we assumed of these women. So a little about this movie is the fact that sorry. Yay, recording 1 is done. Now I can move on to the other recording for Mind, Body and Rue. Good work, good work. Yeah. Nice. I'm in a really good mood today. Morning recordings are the best. Anyway.